Meet Shidduchim, and you get it the right one in the right time, and like you said, Kaherafayim. So this week we learn about living. Vayichi Yaakov be'eretz Mitzrayim. So they say he lived 17 years. Did he only live 17 years? He lived his best years. The gematria of 17, Tov. Tov is 17. I live at 17 Beechwood. I was very happy. I used to live at 10 Lakeside. And then I lived at 8 Lakeside. So 10 and 8 was 18. I thought those were good numbers, but now I found out that 17 is Tov, so I'm happy to live there. And it's across the street from the main group, so what could be better? So 17 is the years he lived in Mitzrayim. He felt alive. And another 17 years were the first 17 years that Yosef was living at home with Yaakov. So how much is 17 and 17? 34. It's early in the morning, 34. And it's the gematria also of Vayichi. So those are the 34 years that he really lived. The 17 years old when his son was at home, like the rest of us when we have our children at home. And the 17 years when he was in Mitzrayim and he finally had peace and serenity in his home. And then, of course, he gets sick. That was unusual. It was very unusual because in those days people didn't get sick before they died. But after Yaakov requested it, he said, how does somebody know to prepare, to say goodbye, to speak to people, to give a blessing if you don't have that transition? So from then on, people did get sick before they died, so they had the time to set their house in order, so to speak. And then he wants to bless the sons of Yosef, and he blesses them Ephraim and Manasseh. And that's where he does that little trick. Now you see it, now you don't. First they look like this, and then and he switches his hands. Why? Because he knew who needed which bracha, and he gave the younger the bracha before the older and the stronger bracha. Why? Because he realized that was the right way. So when it comes to justice, you have to treat everyone equally. But when it comes to educating our children and treating them a certain way, each child has to be treated according to what he needs. And he says the famous bracha, we use that bracha. Yesimcha Elokim Ephraim Manasseh. Why do we use them? Most of you know it. Because this bracha is for someone who lives in exile. We now live in exile. We want our children to grow, to thrive, to be able to face the culture and be able to survive and do really well and successful. So therefore he gives that bracha. And then, unfortunately, he passes on, even though it says Vayichi Yaakov, they said he doesn't really die. Yaakov lo meis, because in his life he was so close and so connected to Hashem that there was this connection to the eternal that even in his death he was still so connected. So he continued to live. They say that's why the lechem hapanim stayed fresh from week to week, because it was so connected. It was literally lifnei Hashem, before Hashem. And suddenly he's there, and they're deciding this whole debate. Should we bury him? Esav says, that's my burial plot. And they're carrying on and they're negotiating. What do we do? Well, there's a shtar, there's some kind of contract. We have to go get it. Someone should go get it. And they're talking back and forth. And they want to send Naphtali, the swiftest runner. And meanwhile, all of a sudden, Chushim, the son of Dan, comes and he kills Esav. And he's not thinking about it. He just does it. Why? Because Chushim was deaf. He didn't get caught up in this whole web of words, and this whole thing that's going on, and this whole negotiation. Sometimes we get lost in the process. He said, this is an indignity, this is a travesty, and he did what had to be done. We have to step forward sometimes and not listen to all this talk and not listen to all the nonsense that goes around, but do the right thing, as Chushim did. And another time, sometimes we also have to act like we're deaf. When your husband, your kids, when someone says something not right, not appropriate, that you're sensitive about. Sometimes there's an expression Tila Yeager uses, you have to put on your deaf hat. You have to turn you don't have to react to every single thing. There's a time to react and a time not to. And then they give the bracha. I skipped that. Hamalach hago elosimi kora. And it's interesting because right before that it says that they're talking about Yaakov. He says, V'yivarechas Yosef v'yom ha'alokim asher hit halchu avosai lefanai. This is, the God who walked with my fathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, the one who watched over them as a shepherd. Hamalach hagol osimi kavra. The angel, we could all sing it now. The angel should watch over these children, and they should be called in the name of my fathers, and they should be fruitful in the land. So why, when it's talking about Abraham and Yitzchak, does it refer to Halokim? God was with them. God walked with them. And then when we're talking about, later on, when we're talking about the blessing that we get, we're talking about a malach. I would have liked it direct from Hashem. Why do I want the angel? So what it's saying is, Avram and Yitzchak literally walked with God. In the time of Avram and Yitzchak, there were outward miracles. Everyone knew they were with God, and amazing things happened to them. There was miracles constantly, open miracles. Later on, in exile, where we are now, there are miracles, but they're hidden miracles. Hashem is operating, but behind the scenes. He's literally the puppet master back there, and everything happens for a reason, and everything Hashem is directing, but we don't see it the same way. There is an agent of Hashem HaMalach. And eventually, if we walk in the ways of Hashem, then we too will be zocheh to have Hashem watch over us and do it in a more open way and in a more miraculous, obvious way. And they talk about later on, Shevet Dan was the one who's known to be, to fight for justice. And then they said, and there was one time, in history, there was a judge, and he was very makpid, and every time, like something happened, he said, sue me, I'm going to take you to court, sue, justice, let's pursue justice. They said he went to the extreme. So why is it called midos? Why do we call it midos? It's a funny word that we use for our character traits.
Measure.
What is midos? Measure. Because every character trait you have has to be done in the right measure. It has to be not too much, not too little, balanced. So that's why character traits use the word midos. And then I'll just finish off by saying two things. One is Yisachar. It talks about that he is going to be zocha to menucha, to a certain amount of tranquility, serenity. And then it says that he will put his shoulder, to the grindstone, and he will, be an indentured slave. So it doesn't make sense. When we think of menucha, we think of vacation, relaxing. But what it is, real menucha, real serenity, comes when you have a purpose and you accomplish it. So because he was doing his purpose, and he went and he knew what he was supposed to do, then he did it. And I want to say, my grandfather always used to say, are you making progress? Are you making progress? We'd say, Zaidi, we did this. Zaidi, we went to school. Zaidi, we got a grade. Zaidi, you're making progress. Years later, we found that all he ever wanted to do was, were we getting married? At 16 years old, he was really saying, are you making progress? But that's how we have to look. Are we fulfilling our potential? That's what it is. And Yehuda, we are called Yehudim. Why? We are called Yehuda, because Yehuda was the one, Leah, thanks Hashem, appreciation. And we always feel we don't deserve. Whatever Hashem gives us, we have because of Hashem, not because we're deserving. It's too much. And that's why in every language, Yidden, it's short for Yehuda. Jude, when they used to call you Jude, it's short for Judah again. And every word that we say, Yiddish, Yehuda, it's all because we are people who have to be appreciative, who have to be thankful, and whatever we have, we feel undeserving, and yet we acknowledge it's all from Hashem. You should all be zocha to find the inner potential. And Mazel Tov again.